Smarties, I am thrilled for you to meet Alex. Alex is a former client of mine at Kapp Educational Therapy Group. He is a second-year college student who began working with me during his first year of college. And in this episode, we talk about his transformation that occurred over the course of our work together, including things like how valuable rules were for him, his comfortability around technology, and structures that we put in place for his note-taking and study skills, and time. He shares how transformational educational therapy was for him, and we cannot wait for you to hear this episode. If you are interested in having this transformation for yourself or for the learners in your lives, don't hesitate to sign up for a call. My website is kappedtherapy.com. That's Kapp with a K and 2 P's. And you can sign up for a phone call on my website, www.kappedtherapy.com. We specialize in learners who struggle with executive functioning skills challenges. Or you can sign up for a phone call on Steph's website. She does all the same valuable work and more at www.myedtherapist.com. Let's dig in.
You want to learn faster, but sometimes working harder is just not the answer. You have to learn smarter. The Educational Therapy Podcast.
Hi, Smarties. Welcome to episode 351 of Learn Smarter, the Educational Therapy Podcast. I'm Stephanie Pitts.
And I'm Rachel Kapp.
And today we are so excited to have Alex, one of Rachel's former clients at Kapp Ed Therapy Group, Kapp Educational Therapy Group, with us today. Hi, Alex.
Hi, how's it going? It's good to be here.
Welcome.
We're super excited that you're joining us today. We have been trying to get this recorded for a couple months, so I'm thrilled that it's happening today. Life gets in the way for all of us.
100%.
So, Alex, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us a little bit about how old you are and where you are in life and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Alex. I am 20 years old. I am currently a college sophomore. I live in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I am a speech language pathology major, and I love it. I think it's a great field. And school, it's been a whirlwind of events, a roller coaster to say the least. And I'm just looking forward to, sharing, my experience.
Aren't you in your third year?
No, so I'm in my second year right now. It's the 5-year program. My third year starts in the fall.
Got it. Okay.
This has been a very good experience for me. It kind of turned, my college experience, from upside down to right side up in a way, if you will. It just kind of helped me get on track, learn some new things, and I'm excited to share those.
Why don't you share a little bit about what brought you to working with me in educational therapy?
So whenever I first started college, there was a lot going on. So initially, whenever I started, I was a resident. I lived there. So along with, adjusting to being a college student, I was also adjusting to college life. So there was a lot going on, and, my head wasn't exactly in a great space. There was a lot to adjust to. I kind of felt like I was just sort of floating above the water. And while my grades might not have necessarily been bad, my headspace wasn't great. I felt like I was always scrambling, trying to figure out hundreds of times how to go through something, just trying to figure out where to go. But once I started working with Rachel, that's when things started to gradually change. I knew that I needed help from sort of an outside source. My parents, have always been my greatest allies, but any parent will say this, they can only do so much. We wanted to look at somebody who specializes in organization, educational coaching, different techniques for dealing with college life, assignments, and whatever else there is, because there's a lot.
So I believe it was your mom who initially connected with me. What did you think when she brought this idea to you for us to work together?
So when my mom brought it up to me, I was pretty open to it. I was like, yeah, I could definitely use somebody who can coach me. I was like, things aren't exactly going great, and I don't know what this will look like, but, I would imagine that it would help out. But at the time, I didn't know to what degree it would. And looking back, I can say that, it's done the world for me, I would say. And honestly, I can say that the year that I've spent working with Rachel has really changed how I do education, how I go about my college experience. And whenever I start working professionally, what I've learned will linger into that as well.
Obviously, I love everything about this.
For sure. So, Alex, my question is, you knew that there was something that was really hard. This felt challenging, but your grades were okay, is what you're saying.
Yes, they were in a decent spot, but it felt like it was taking more energy than I needed to expend.
Okay, totally understandable. And your mom brought this up to you and you were open, but there were some areas, it sounds like, that maybe you were a little avoidant or it was feeling a little hard. And one of them being about technology.
Oh, yeah. So I would say around my sophomore year of high school was whenever I started having to use my computer a little bit more for school, given COVID and everything. But
Fair.
I kind of just used it for some of the basic websites that we had to use, like I didn't really know how to effectively use technology to my advantage. I just felt like there was a lot going on with it. I was used to keeping everything organized by paper.
Uh-huh.
So I was a little bit reluctant to maybe try like a system that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. It's like, would I be able to navigate all of this? Would I be able to understand all of like the components of it? Like what if something ends up somewhere and I don't know where to find it,
That's fair. So it felt very overwhelming.
Yeah, at first it's like I couldn't have envisioned myself really using it to my advantage the way that I've been doing it now.
So share a little bit about those early sessions, because one of the things I remember us talking about is having an openness about trying something different, and that it was probably going to feel uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, so I think the important thing to do is to keep the end goal in mind. It's like, what are you looking to get out of this?
Before you even do that, what were you looking to get out of it?
Yeah, so I was looking to be able to have a positive learning experience without really expending all the energy that I felt like I was expending. I wanted to be able to have everything up front, organized. I wanted to know where everything was. And this is the big one, having a plan laid out for what I need to do. Because I felt like before that, I kind of just sort of tried to do things as I went along, and it just required more like metacognition in a way, thinking about what I'm thinking about and thinking on the fly. And sometimes you have to be able to do that, but like in areas where you don't have to, like it's just not worth it. Yeah, organization was a big one. I wanted to make sure that I was organized and that I had a plan. That was what I really wanted to get out of this, because one thing that I knew was that whenever I knew how to attack something, I didn't even really spend any time worrying about it. It was kind of like, we have a plan. We have a system that we can do this in. After maybe like a session or two, that's whenever I figured out, all right, you're kind of just going to have to trust the process here, because if you have to like maybe make a few adjustments now, maybe troubleshoot through a few things, it's better for that to be now than later on, whenever I'm in like my second or third year and things are getting tougher.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to have to be worrying about that stuff then, because that's just a disaster waiting to happen. So I really wanted to take the bull by the horns here.
I remember that mentality. What do you remember from those early sessions with me?
I just remember it was a lot of cleaning things up, really. I have two emails, a personal one and a school one. Pretty much what we spent a lot of those first few sessions doing was we did something called cleaning up the systems or fixing the systems. A lot of that was the emails, because, well, emails can kind of be a dumping ground if you're not really looking over them daily, because sometimes you could get just an ad from something that you maybe unknowingly subscribed to, or maybe it's a website you visited one time, versus an actual email that you're getting from a professor or an academic advisor, or even Rachel in my case,
Mm-hmm.
That requires you to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's within all the other junk, you miss it. So we did emails. What else do you remember?
So I also remember using Google Drive to create files for all of my classes. So in my school, we use this site called Canvas, but within that site, it can be a little bit complicated to navigate through a few things. So sort of kind of just making files for things that you're going to consistently be visiting time and time again. It was just more practical to download a copy of them and move them to an area that was much easier for me to access.
Just to get specific, we did simple things like put your syllabi in your Google Drive, with the goal being, let's have everything accessible to you in one spot. And now you knew the rule about where things were.
Yes.
That was really helpful for you, is knowing the rules about how we were going to use the systems, because you like a rule.
Oh, yeah. Whenever things get really fuzzy, I really like to limit that. I like there to be some sort of set of rules to go off of. I think it makes things a lot easier. And one of the rules that really stuck out to me was keep everything in one place. That one place was Google Drive.
Yeah.
I keep all my files for different classes and I even have them separated by semester. I also have a separate file for important documents like class requirements, clinical requirements.
Like your school plan for the next 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is. Yeah.
That's also a document I've kind of just kept open, just so I know what I'm doing for my course plan for these next few years. Once that fourth year hits, I'm not really going to have to do much in the way of planning. They have everything laid out once you reach what they call the professional years.
Yep. So can you talk a little bit about the use of the calendar in the past for you and what it was like to use Google Calendar with me?
So Google Calendar is another thing that has made college, and other things for that matter, a million times easier. Anytime an important event comes up, it goes on the calendar. Like the time I hopped on this podcast, I put it on my calendar for this time.
Yeah.
And pretty much I would use it for any events that I had, including class times, any other events going on at school. And then there's also this thing you can do where you can create tasks. So those tasks, in my case, would be homework assignments or writing an email to somebody, just anything important that I had to do. The events were places I had to go or somebody that I would have to see. But the tasks were things on this calendar that I would have to do, whether it would be for school or just a task that I would have to do in general. It was a huge lifesaver for organization, and I still use it today.
And it's synced on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
So it's accessible wherever you are.
Yeah, I would highly recommend Google because you can use it on your phone. You can use it on your laptop or your desktop. It's interchangeable between devices. You might have to deal with dual factor authentication, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
If you're logging in on a device that your account might not be familiar with, but it's really good for whenever you need to use multiple devices. Like sometimes I don't always have my computer right in front of me, but I have Google Calendar on my phone. I have Google Drive on my phone, and I have Gmail on my phone. So if I ever need to check anything on the fly, or I just need a minute to look at something, I can just pull out my phone, Google right there. I can look at it. So it's been huge for helping keep me organized.
I'm glad. I think that that's really a life changer for a lot of people. And I am so impressed with your ability to sit there and say, I know that I needed to trust the process. So bravo to you for that. I'm wondering now that it sounds like you've got this school thing that it feels a little bit more manageable for you. How has your life at home changed?
Well, so near the tail end of my first semester, I decided to switch to living back at home full time and driving to school. I feel like whenever I started doing that, I was starting to live as an adult just a little bit more. You get up, you get in your car, you drive to school, you do what you need to do and you come home. It's kind of like, wow, this is kind of sort of, like how adults live their life in a way.
Adulting so hard. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, my schedule's a little different this year in that I don't have to get up super early, which is kind of nice in some ways. But, the thing is that getting up and driving to somewhere you need to go, it kind of just gets my brain in gear. Whenever my brain has to focus on, little tasks like that, it kind of helps wake it up a little bit for the bigger tasks. So, yeah, but life at home has also improved ever since I've started using these systems as well. It's always like information has to go somewhere, right? But sometimes it just ends up in your head. But, if it ends up in your head all the time, you're going to end up stressed. So what I would do with that information is I would put it either in Google Calendar or Google Drive so that I had it in a concrete position. That way, I didn't have to think about it all the time. It was there, I could check, and I knew what I needed to do. Nothing hanging over my head.
Alex, can you share a little bit about the study skills and the note taking? Because you adopted a new method for taking notes as well while we were working together, and a new approach to studying. And I would love to hear you share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so whenever it comes to note taking, what I used to do, I would kind of just take notes on certain things, and this dates back to high school. Yeah, I would kind of just jot down things I would hear or see, but there was really no organization or pattern to it. But then whenever I started working with Rachel, she taught me a few ways to, organize my notes. There's a few big things that we started doing, and one that's putting the date at the top of the page for each time that you started taking notes. And like if a unit continued into the next day, you could continue off of that, but like it just kind of gives you a starting point. So, like today's February 12th. So if I started a new like chapter in class today, I would put February 12th, 2025 on my note page. And then I would start, putting like the main ideas and whatnot down. And also another important thing to keep in mind is that whenever you do start a new note page, to hit Control Enter, that will put you on a completely new page. It also makes it much easier to find certain parts of your notes that you're looking for whenever you're looking back at them. And the third thing is color coding. Each date change, you use a different color. So like, for example, one day I would use black, and then the next time I had that class, I would use red. It kind of helps the visual learner like myself as well, like make those distinct separations between note blocks. So if you think about it, these weren't major changes, but the impact they had was huge. It was part of that organization that I was looking to move towards, and that was a huge part of it.
What do you do now if you don't understand something?
So if I don't understand something, what I've learned is that it's okay to ask for clarity. It's okay because your professors, they like it whenever, their students, ask them questions, because it means that they're interested in what they're learning. And maybe if they don't understand something, the thing is that if you have any questions on anything, everybody learns a little bit differently. Just don't be afraid to ask for something if you need it. And that's something that some of my other peers will do around me as well. Not all of them, a few of them, but that's the thing. You don't need to be fearful of anything like that. They're going to help you out if you want it.
Alex, I would love for you to share a little bit about how we sort of tapered sessions off and then ultimately agreed that you were ready to go off on your own. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, certainly. So whenever I first started working with Rachel, we met twice a week, 50 minutes each time, because we had to work on a lot of foundational stuff. We had to work at the bottom of the pyramid before working our way up. And as you know, the base of a pyramid is much larger. So it took more time to really get those systems in order. But then once I had more of a grasp on them, we didn't need to spend as much time looking over stuff like that. And we could eventually move more into study techniques and note-taking techniques and ways to just be a more efficient student. And that didn't quite take as long because we had something to work off of beneath that. So then as I was learning more of these skills, there was more that I was able to do on my own. So like as we're going up this pyramid and working our way up to the tip of the pyramid, each thing that I was learning was built off of what I had previously learned, and I could build connections off of that. So it didn't take as much time for me to pick up on that. So eventually we go down from, doing 50 minutes twice a week to doing 25 minutes twice a week. So what we would do is we would check in, if I had any questions about anything, usually anything writing related. I needed a little bit more assistance with, but it's working out better for me now. I've learned how to separate things out, sort of take like a big paragraph and sort of break it up into answerable questions. I just think it makes it a lot easier on the brain. But then, yeah, as I was learning more of these techniques, eventually we didn't need to visit quite as much. And then eventually we went down to once a week, and then I think every other week. And it was eventually just to check in to make sure that all the systems were in order, that everything was okay. And then one day I'm talking with my mom, and she was like, well, how do you feel all this stuff's going on? I'm like, it's working out pretty good. Then Rachel and I talked, and then, we decided, yeah, I think I'm ready to go out there and do this stuff on my own now, because I was feeling pretty confident. Pretty much everything that I was telling her, she was like, yep, that's all great. I like what you're doing. This is very efficient. It's organized. You're working towards your goals. And then eventually that's when we agreed that I was ready to graduate.
Graduate out.
I love it.
Yeah, I love that too. And what would you say now that you've graduated out and you've had a little time without Rachel, what would you tell other kids who might be reluctant or curious about educational therapy?
For anybody that's reluctant about it, let me just say it's one of the greatest things that I think I've ever experienced. I have made foundational changes to how I do school and how I organize my life in general due to the techniques that Rachel has taught me. There are some big changes, and it might take a while for you to maybe start feeling them, but the one thing I would really keep in mind is trust the process. You have to trust the process. And I would very much recommend it because it has been a game changer for my educational experience. I do school in a completely different way. If you have any reluctance, I understand. Humans tend to want to keep doing what they've always been doing, but just that little bit of curiosity of what if I made these little changes? What can that do for my long-term goals? Just ask yourself that. It is worth it, I promise you.
I love it. We went over all the things. Alex, is there anything else you want to make sure you say?
Pretty much what I would say is that I have had nothing short of a fantastic experience working with Kapp Educational Therapy Group. It's been a real game changer for me. I would highly recommend it to any high schooler or college kid that is looking to become more organized, to really get anxiety off of their back, because it can be really tolling sometimes. I would highly recommend it just to help with your educational experience, and it can transfer over to your professional experience as well. It is a very good investment to make, and my experience has been nothing short of amazing.
Yay. Well, congratulations, because you also put in the hard work.
1,000%.
You were willing to make the changes and implement them and practice them.
And I just want to add, we didn't really talk about it today, but you did inspire several episodes of the podcast. And one of the episodes that I know for sure was the result of our working relationship was our episode on email templates, because that was something that you and I did together, just in case situations arose, you had a plan.
I still keep that template in my Google Drive. It's still there. It's still there in case if anything happens.
Good.
I haven't had to use it yet because it's been a while since I got sick. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But, in case anything does happen, I have a list of steps to fall back on. So, yeah, that's definitely, been part of the game changer here.
Good.
We'll link that episode in the show notes to this episode, too. And with that, will you just say our signature sign off, which is have a great week, Smarties?
All right. Have a great week, Smarties.
Have a great week.
Have a great week.